Hello and welcome to the September edition of the Ipsum Art and Soul Show. On this month's show we have both parts of our interview with the writers of the book Tenacity, placed at either end of this show. We also have an interview with Swindon Search and Rescue's Adrian Sawyer, and then our Brian's Adventures in Faraway Lands. Also music from John Joe Higgins. First up, a song written by Swindon man Justin Hayward called Nights in White Satin by the Moody Blues.
Nights in white satin, never reaching the end. Letters I've written, never meaning to send. Beauty I'd always missed with these eyes before. Just what the truth is, I can't say anymore, 'cause I love you. Yes, I love you. Oh, I love you. Gazing at people, some hand in hand, just what I'm going through, they can understand. Some try to tell me thoughts they cannot defend. Just what you want to be, you will be in the end. And I love you. Yes, I love you. Oh, I love you.
Anymore. That was Nights in White Satin by the Moody Blues, and now the first part of our two-part interview where our very own Oz interviews the writers of the book Tenacity.
So I'm here with Julie, Michelle and Sarah to talk about a book called Tenacity. Now, I'm very excited about this because I think the topic of this book is something that's really, really important to talk about openly with. So can you guys just sum up what the book's about?
Well, the book is called Tenacity, and it's about family addiction. And we tell the story through the mother's perspective of what happened to their sons. And it's not just about drug addiction, but we go back on the family history. And the message is it can happen to anyone, basically.
Yeah.
So we tell the journey of these two young men
Yeah.
and how they got into taking drugs and their addiction and what influenced them along the path of that journey.
But it's quite a unique book because, as you say, you're telling it from the mother's perspective.
Yeah.
And that's really interesting to have that interesting angle and that interesting sort of thought process behind it. So who wrote the book? Because there's quite a lot of you here. Who are the writers?
Well, the three of us wrote it together, which is
Yeah.
Julie is obviously the mother of Scott and Michelle and Sarah, the siblings of Stephen, because it's actually two mothers' story, separate
Yeah,
individual
yeah.
stories which interlink because the mothers were friends and obviously the boys grew up together as childhood
Yeah.
friends. So the three of us at the kitchen table with the laptop, we just started 5 years ago. It took 3 years to write,
Yeah.
and obviously it's taken us 2 years to try and get it out there.
Mm-hmm.
It's a story that can benefit families, not just in this country, but all over the world. And many of the details in the book, obviously, it is from the mother's perspective about, it's not the addict itself, it's about what these mothers go through to try and get their sons clean. The tenacity is obviously to never give up, and they never did. And it's basically whoever is going through this, it could be mums, dads, carers, grandparents, whatever. It's really there to give some comfort, some hope, some advice, and all the drugs knowledge that, you know, if you're in the dark about it, you've just got a teenager, you know, coming into that stage, then, you know, I really think that you should be made aware of what to look for, and that's sort of why.
Yeah, it is a family disease. So, you know, when reading the book, it is an education. And I think all parents should read it, whether they're worried about their kids going on drugs or not. I think it's a signs to look out for. And it's a stigma, and it is something that's swept under the carpet. But I think if they read this, they get a good insight as to what a monster and how ugly addiction is.
Yeah.
And it takes them on that journey
So
through that.
there was someone else involved in the writing of the book who isn't here. So tell me about Marilyn.
Marilyn is my mother. She knew about the book, and she was all for it. And she got ill with breast cancer, and she died. And me and Sarah just carried on with it, you know, not straight away, but you know, when we felt ready, because she went through hell, and we sort of knew we had to get her story out, you know, what she went through. She felt very alone, like you do, and obviously it was great because Julie wanted to get her story out as well, so we could go and do this unique story of two mothers, you know, and it's solely with Marilyn from her perspective, even though myself and Sarah wrote the book.
So tell me about the two sons. Tell me about who they were, what they enjoyed doing, you know.
Yeah, I mean, Scott obviously was my son.
Yeah.
And he had a lovely personality. He left school. He seemed to know what he wanted to do, and he went straight into college, did carpentry, got his sitting guilds. I didn't feel I had to really worry about him because he was really so good, you know. He was a good lad, really. And had a girlfriend, earning great money. I think for him, it was the people around him, peer pressure. I didn't pick up on the signs. I wasn't educated. I had no idea at all. And for me, it started from him smoking, going on to weed, you know, and then I'd be finding bits of silver paper in the bedroom, you know, and he was taking heroin in the end. But even then, I still never twigged, because I didn't know anything about it. I wasn't educated. And I don't think he really realised how dangerous it was. and his friends around them. So there was a group of people at that time, a group of young lads at that time, and girls, that got into it. So, from a mother's point of view, my message is, pick up on those things, educate yourself, understand what drugs are all about, get that knowledge, read up on it, understand it, look for the signs, and the kids as well, they need to understand it and realise what it can do to them, not just give them serious illnesses or, I've seen young people with, they'll lose their leg, their eye, and, ultimately death.
Addiction is a real serious problem.
That is the true reality, and it is a monster.
Yeah, it's a real problem in today's society. Do you think that society in general plays a role in addiction and creating the circumstances where addiction takes place?
Yeah, I definitely do, because I think there's so much pressure out there today to pressure, earn lots of money, be good at everything and be beautiful, and no one can always keep up with that. And I think there is so much pressure, and it's tough out there, and kids struggle to cope. And so, yeah, I definitely do think society does play a role in that.
Yeah. So you decided to write this book. Tell me, what was the decision process behind that? What was the conversation that was had to kick it all off?
I think it was the phone call from Michelle.
Yeah, my career just I've sort of lost it, so I was sort of on the scrap heap, really. And I knew I had that story behind us, and I wanted to do it with Stephen because I just knew it wasn't normal. So when my career went, I said to Sarah,
sorry, what was your career in?
My career, I was studying in counselling on and off, and it sort of, it didn't sort of go as it should have done. So obviously my backup was the book, and I said to Sarah about it. Sarah said, yeah, let's do it. Let's work from home and let's do it. So, and I always thought about Julie because Scott and Stephen were friends, and then one day Julie made a phone call to see how my mum was because my mum had cancer, and then I said to Julie, I'm thinking of doing this book. I'm thinking of doing a book, and she said, oh God, I want to do it. Can I come in with you? We didn't know at that time how we were going to do it, and I said, yeah, with open arms, that'd be great. And we just had a meeting, and we kept having meetings before, we started the writing, and me and Sarah done the writing together on the kitchen table at the house, at my house, and Julie would do hers separately at her house, but we would get together for meetings to see how we were doing, disclosing confidential, personal, sensitive information. So we've built up a real bond between the three of us now.
Yeah, I mean, it was a phone call, basically. I mean, at the time, to be honest, I didn't really feel strong enough to go over that story again. It's very personal, very close to me, being my son. I didn't know really whether I could do it, but I just felt I had to get that information out there, because you go through hell. The whole family goes through hell, it's a knock-on effect. So I think in terms of how I've coped is, it's been a great therapy to write my side of the story, and it's helped me get through a terrible time. I mean, losing a child is probably one of the worst things that can ever happen to a human being. And writing the book is certainly a great therapy. I've got back into music now, back into my violin. I do a little bit more writing. And that's why I admire the work that you're doing here at Ipsum with the art and the music. And, within that recovery process, I really do think it's very beneficial to recovery.
That was the first part of our interview with the writers of the book Tenacity. And now the Mature Mondays cover of Jimmy Jazz, originally by The Clash.
Jimmy Jazz, I said it, he ain't here, but he sure went past. Oh, yeah, if you're looking for my man, Jimmy Jazz, Jazz. Dread, cut off his ears, chop off his head. Police came looking for my man Jimmy Jazz, Jazz, Jazz. So if you're gonna take a message across this town, maybe put it down somewhere over the other side to see that it gets to my man Jimmy Jazz, Jazz, Jazz. Don't bother me not anymore. I can't take his tail off. No, no more. It's all around, yeah, my man Jimmy Jazz, Jazz, Jazz. The J-A-Z-Z, the J-A-Z, the J-A-Z-Z, Jimmy Jazz. Yeah, it's all around, Jimmy Jazz, Jazz, Jazz. Well, the police walked in for Jimmy Jazz. I said, he ain't here, but he sure went past. Oh, well, you're looking for my man Jimmy Jazz, Jazz, Jazz. Is that a Mexicana for Jimmy Dread? Cut off his ears and chop off his head. The police came looking for my man Jimmy Jazz, Jazz, Jazz. So if you're gonna take a message across this town, maybe put it down somewhere over the other side and see that it gets to my man Jimmy Jazz, Jazz, Jazz. Don't you bother me anymore. I can't take his tail off. Oh no, no more. It's all around Jimmy Jazz, Jazz, Jazz. A J-A-Z-Z, J-A-Z-Z, a J-A-Z-Z, Jimmy Jazz. Well, it's all around Jimmy Jazz, Jazz, Jazz. Chop, chop, chop.
Hello, listeners, and we welcome back to the studio Brian Barber, who's going to give us a little bit of insight into his involvement with local radio in the developing world.
Yeah, it's very, very important. Surprisingly, in this country, we tend to ignore radio systems that we've got. They're just there as background most of the time.
Yeah, like I say, we do take it for granted in this country. You know, you have travelled far and wide with your experience in local radio and setting up of stations. How many of these projects have you been involved in?
I would think something like about 7 or 8. The biggest project was Liberia, where I built 26 stations.
Oh, wow, that's a big number. Yeah.
And the worst was Sudan, where we had to take every single nut and bolt because you could not buy anything locally.
That's, again, yeah, something we take for granted, having, you know, the ironmongers down the road and all your Radio Shack and people like that to be putting these things together. So, you know, a lot of commitment from yourself and others on the team.
Not just a commitment, Scott. You're in a situation where you have to create a spreadsheet with every item that you're likely to use to build a radio station.
You kind of, you don't think of that, do you? You know, it's, like you say, you get your nuts and bolts and build things, but yeah, I guess people who are providing these things, the funding for, get, you know, want
I suppose
a breakdown of
the
it.
worst part of it was there are no roads, and so we had to fly everything in. And when you think about masts, we had 30-metre masts to take, so they were in sections, actually bolted together. So we had to hire a Buffalo aircraft to carry our masts to each of the radio station locations.
Yeah, again, take roads so for granted in this country.
There aren't any.
So yeah, we move on. I know we've got a clip to play shortly from the Dinka Ladies, but what other things, you know, did your stations air?
Well, we used to do a lot of public service broadcasting because information was so important. not just in English, because they did speak English, but in local languages. And in fact, in Liberia, it was sort of Liberian English, which is a bit of a pidgin English. And so you had a situation where the women who tended not to have attended school and been taught English could at least listen to a language they understood, because there are no newspapers and they couldn't read anyway. So that was their information. Until we got there, it was international radio, RT, French, German, and the BBC. But nothing local. It was all international.
Yeah, proper local radio with local voice.
Yeah, exactly.
Communicating orally.
That's it.
Like say, without the written word.
Yeah, we trained them to become journalists, to become presenters, and to be able to produce programmes.
So, yeah, the Dinka ladies, who were they and what were they singing about?
Well, the Dinka ladies had an interesting career. They were women from the local tribes, and they realised that people didn't know about HIV, didn't know about AIDS, didn't know about condoms, and so they made it their purpose in life to travel around all of the villages to sing their song, which was all about AIDS, HIV, etc. And they got the message through. But of course, when the radio arrived, they could get to far many more people than they could just walking from the villages.
Before you make wait your conduct before you make love. Wait your conduct before you make There's a message from the Black Knowledge Bush of Liberia. The only way you can be prevented is to stop going around from man to man, from woman to woman, is by using conduct or stick to one faithful partner. Come on, leave the loving. Come on, leave the loving brothers. Come on, leave the loving. Come on, leave the loving sisters. Come on, leave the loving. Come on, leave the loving.
The Black Knowledge Boys, which is the thing that's just gone out, they were an interesting group. I funded them making their first CD, and again, they were trying to get the message across about condoms, not going around, keeping to a one faithful partner, all of that in their songs. And so that's something which I found very different from what happens in this country. We don't have songs with political, well, we do with political, but with public service messages. We just don't do it.
It's stripped back right back to the basics, then, isn't it? Talking about the real important stuff about public radio, public safety. I also hear that you created soaps, but not the soaps that we know, like Coronation Street and EastEnders, say.
No, this is the whole point. Soaps are very, very underrated. The ones that you're talking about aren't soaps; they're just dramas. What we're looking at is what the early Archers were, which was information about, say, agricultural issues. Our soaps were about issues such as malaria, about public health, about antenatal, about agricultural issues. That's what soaps are about. And what you do is you create a team of actors who can then act the whole thing through and make a drama out of it, and people follow it. They're really, really tied in. They get hooked on it. Now, to give you some idea, what we've got now is a quick clip from Radio Valencia about malaria.
Could you believe that one day I was rushed to the hospital, I was shivering with high fever. It's as a result of mosquito bites and that I had malaria. Secondly, I make sure that if I have any fever, I go to the hospital.
I use ITN, this insecticide treated net. Once you use the ITN net, you're protected. And you find out that in the morning, when you wake up in the morning, you see all the mosquitoes that are trying to get into you hanging on the net.
We say, I use shelters, I use a mosquito coil.
So that was an excellent clip there from Radio Valencia. Now, how did you go about creating these soaps? How did you put them together?
Well, that was the hard part. First, we had to build a studio. Then we had to hire the actors, or the talent as they call it, and get a scriptwriter. And so we did all of that, got the scripts, got the talent to do it. And the really great thing was, because it was so difficult to get the CDs with the stories on out, because there's no roads, they were flown in by whoever happened to be flying that way, like UN helicopters or WF, World Food Programme, WFP. The World Food Programme used to do it. And of course, when the people who were the furthest away from the transmissions got their copies, they ended up being several weeks behind the ones in Monrovia. And there was all hell broke out, because why did they get up to date and we're so far behind?
Right, okay, yeah. If only the wish there was to be able to get everybody on the same level at the same time. But I guess the great thing about, getting the actors in who were local, the talent, they knew about the subjects that they were talking about. So, a real genuine side to it as well, and that people could relate to.
Yeah, that's what it was, and I really did enjoy that situation. And the great thing was, we did 26 radio stations in Liberia. I left, and I kept in touch with the teams. And last time I spoke to them, they'd got 50 stations running. And okay, a couple of them had dropped out because they didn't have decent management. But they've got 50 local radio stations running throughout the country, which is brilliant.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Creates a real network. So, yeah, massive thanks again to Brian Barber for more of his tales in faraway land. So,
well, thank you,
speak
Scott.
to you soon.
Yep, thank you.
Coming up next on the September Art and Soul Show, local band Terror 45 with The Unknown, recorded in Basement 13 at Ipsum.
The other
That was Terror 45, The Unknown. And now we continue our interview by James Osborne with the ladies who wrote the book Tenacity.
Is there a message you'd like to give to any mothers that are going through this right now? You know, any mothers that are, you know, going through the emotional turmoil of having a child who's wrapped up in addiction?
Well, it is difficult. It's very difficult. You definitely need support. It is a stigma. I'm not sort of within that pool anymore as such. But you know, families need support. We do have a website. If anyone has any questions on that, I'm happy to answer and send information out.
What's the link?
It's www.tenacitybook.co.uk.
Say that again, sorry.
www.tenacitybook.co.uk.
And that's a
our
place
website.
where people can go to learn about how to process this situation.
They can go there. They can look at our journey there.
Yeah.
They can send messages, or if they have any questions.
Yeah.
And they can, you know, we can help in any way, any support in that direction, and send out information on. We have some very in-depth, interesting booklets on all different kinds of drugs that we
So
can
it's
supply.
not just the book you've done. You've supplied an entire resource for people.
We're building on that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, we are going to expand on that. You know.
Speaking of expansion, I believe you guys have some plans to go into schools and colleges. Is that right?
Yeah, we've actually already started that process, just first with Dorkin Academy. The teacher welcomes us there with open arms. We've had a great response from the pupils there. She wants us in every week if she can. We've taken our banners, advertising our book, and obviously we talk about, we've got this book and what it's about. And then we go through the stories individually, you know, taking out the most hard-hitting sections really, and also to make them understand that this could be them, it could happen to them. So what we're trying to get the message across is just say no. And then we hand out questionnaires to the children, and the interaction with them is, you know, they come in all quite forlorn, and then they go out there and we feel we've made this real bond. They go out happy, they go out like they're full of knowledge, and the feeling inside that you've empowered those children with the knowledge that they need it's amazing really. And that is why we wrote the book.
It
really
comes from the heart.
Yeah,
What we're doing, it comes from the heart.
I think that's very, very important, because I think kids notice that when it's authentic and real, kids pick up on it. And so that's how they're going to learn, because if it's inauthentic and you're just going in,
you're like robots.
yeah, people are going to ignore you, but you've actually got real experience of this. And the kids will respond really, really well to that.
It's not a lecture, you know, we're coming from the heart. It's actually happened to us personally. So we don't sugarcoat it. You know, we don't sugarcoat. We can see the sort of shock in their faces at times, you know. But they are. We've had some great feedback. We've had one or two individuals that got quite emotional and said, "Look, thanks for coming today. I feel now I can talk about it. I've got a problem with my, you know, our uncle. He has a drink problem, and she's, you know, such a young girl, but she opened up about it.
Yeah.
And we really felt we had an impact. You know,
That's
we
excellent.
empowered them, yeah.
I'd just like to say it's not only heroin that we touch on in the book. There are multiple of addictions. We touch in on gambling. There's quite a large section of gambling. Stephen has addictive personality, and from the age of 5, from going on seaside holidays at age 5, you become addicted to the fruit machines and that. And you know, there's in both sections of the book, there's a large section of alcohol, which alcohol abuse is, you know, is a problem in society today. But we hope to sort of expand on that as well as the heroin, you know, as we progress through this.
Yeah, it's very interesting. One of the things I've noticed in my life so far is that addictions very seldom exist on their own. One addiction very often leads to another. Thank you all very much for coming in today. It's been really, really good to talk to you.
It's been a pleasure.
Is there anything you want to say? Is there any information you want to give just before we wrap it up?
We'd just like to say that obviously if you are interested in reading the book, it's available on Amazon to purchase. We have currently signed a Canadian publishing deal, and obviously we're just waiting for that to be released, and that will go out across Canada, America and the UK.
Nice.
But in the meantime, it is available there to purchase on Amazon. Which is under, obviously, Tenacity, and the authors are Julie Rose, Michelle Cowell and Sarah Cowell.
Cool.
And, so it's there for whoever would like to buy it.
Great. What is the number one resource that helped you most through all of this?
I think it is writing the book, if I'm honest. I mean, we pull together, we write the book, you talk about what you've been through, and talking, communicating. It's always, number one, help, really. I mean, to get it out, and it's never going to change what's happened. But if you talk about it and you can see that we're developing and helping others, then that's all we can. Yeah.
We're all understanding as well. We're all open to new things.
Yeah, and that's all. All we can do is turn something negative into something positive.
Yeah.
And that's what we're
That's the
trying
main
to
aim,
do, really.
So I guess what you're encouraging people to do, as much as anything, is not just learn about your story, but also to get their story out there and be open about what they're going through. Maybe even record a podcast, write a blog, that sort of thing, as a way of processing your hurt. It's often really, really good to share it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, we want people to what we're saying is that they're not alone, we're not necessarily unique. It's a familiar story, as we all know, but we just think we need to talk about it more, get it out there more, and families are not alone in this.
I'd just like to say that obviously there's a lot of shame. There would be a lot of shame to think, oh God, my kid's a drug addict or my kid's an alcoholic, but it really can happen to anyone.
Well, thank you very much for coming in, ladies. It's been really, really good. Have
Thanks
excellent
for having us.
days.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes our interview with the authors of Tenacity, and now a track written and recorded by Ted Bedborough, A Love of Peace of Mind.
Everything I had to give, my love so strong was not enough. Maybe we were just not meant to be. I know I wronged your better cause, but you didn't mind, that's not the point. If there's true love, it wasn't on our mind. Love, it doesn't go away. Best I wish for all these days, I hope that you will find a love, a peace of mind. And you remember little things, memories of love we had. It makes me smile, it makes me think of you. I know a world of love, a love that owns beyond our years, 'cause we deserve a peace that's all around. Love, it doesn't go away, the best I wish for all these days, I hope that you will
That was A Love of Peace of Mind by Ted Bedborough. Now we have a cover of the Garth Brooks song The Dance, performed by Mike Watkins.
Looking back on the memory of the dance we shared beneath the stars above. For a moment, all the world was right. How could I have known that you'd ever say goodbye? And now I'm glad I didn't know the way it all would end, the way it all would go. Our lives are better left to chance. I could have missed the pain, but I'd have had to miss holding you. Oh, I held everything for a moment. Wasn't I a king? But if I'd only known how the king would fall, he hates to say, you know, I might have changed it all. And now I'm glad I didn't know the way it all would end, the way it all would go. Our lives are better left to chance. I could have missed the pain, but I'd have had to miss the yes, my life is better left to chance. I could have missed the pain, but I'd have had to miss the dance.
That was Mike Watkins with The Dance. And now, Rusty Oates back again.
November sun. It's cold as I step outside. The low November sun hurts my eyes. These sunglasses I wear are not just a practical thing. They stop the outside world from looking in. My eyes are tired, the whites are cracked by the tormented hours of long sleepless nights. The highs have gone, they never last, and I'm returning again to the past. All the medication, those pills, only serve to keep out the chill. My eyes are shaded, my soul tired, restless, my face expressionless, my stone-faced defence. Yes, I've made mistakes, but haven't we all? Yes, I've burned bridges and locked firmly closed doors. I take one step forward and stumble back three. My body is willing, but my mind won't release me. All the medication, those pills, only serve to keep out the chill. I try to find direction and flow. My body is able, but my mind says no. I'm doing my best to keep off the drink, and I've washed all the bottles of pills down the sink. I guess it'll take time to get my life back online, but I'm ready to detangle the string.
That was November Sun by our very own Rusty Goat, and now a cover of Beyonce's Daddy Lessons by Bex Sweeney.
To this world, Daddy's little girl. Daddy made a soldier out of me. Ooh, Daddy made me dance. Daddy held my hand. Daddy liked his whiskey with his tea. And we rode motorcycles, blackjack, classic vinyl, tough girl. What I had to be. He said, take care of your mother, watch out for your sister. That's when Daddy looked at me. With his gun and his head held high, he told me not to cry. Oh, my daddy said shoot. Oh, my daddy said shoot. With his right hand on his rifle, he swore it on the Bible. My daddy said shoot. Oh, my daddy said shoot. And he held me in his arms, and he taught me to be strong. And he told me when he's gone, here's what to do. When trouble comes to town, and men like me come around, oh, my daddy said shoot. Oh, my daddy said shoot. Daddy made me fight, wasn't always right, but he said, girl, it's your Second Amendment. Ooh, he always played it cool. But Daddy was no fool. Right before he died, he said, remember. He said, take care of your mother, watch out for your sister. That's when Daddy looked at me. With his gun and his head held high, he told me not to cry. Oh, my daddy said shoot. Oh, my daddy said shoot. His right hand on his rifle, he swore it on the Bible. My daddy said shoot. Oh, my daddy said shoot. And he held me in his arms, and he told me to be strong. And he told me when he's gone, here's what you do. When trouble comes to town, and men like me come around, oh, my daddy said shoot. Oh, my daddy said shoot. My daddy warned me about men like you. He said, baby girl, he's playing you. He's playing you. My daddy warned me about men like you. He said, baby girl, he's playing you. He's playing you. 'Cause when trouble comes in town, and men like me come around, my daddy said shoot. Oh, my daddy said shoot. 'Cause when trouble comes to town, and men like me come around, oh, my daddy said shoot. Oh, my daddy said shoot.
That was Bex Sweeney with Daddy Lessons, and now a song by Debbie made in Basement 13. That was Debbie, and now All So Clear and then Better Days, both by Richie P.
That concludes this month's show. Thanks for listening. See you again next month.